Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Chat. I'm Dr. Jane Ruby. Well, it is Thursday. Thank God. Thursday, November 6th. Just want to check in, do a little bit of a coffee chat, cover some issues that are happening right now, and give you some clarification on some things. But first, I want to thank the donor of my beautiful new cup. I talk about so many things on Coffee Chat, especially in the details and stories and things like that I can't remember if I've ever mentioned. By the way, I love that the inside of the cup has another little black cat. Don't know if I've ever mentioned that I adore black cats. Like, I'm not superstitious. I'm not, on the dark side. I'm not satanic. I'm the opposite. I praise and love God, my Lord and Savior. But I love black cats. They're smooth. They just seem more docile sometimes. And their fur is very sleek. I don't know if it's the color, the melatonin that gives them the black fur, but I love them. And they're my favorite color type of cat. So, but I got this cup in the mail. It's adorable, of these little black cats. And I just want to thank Chelsea. Chelsea, beautiful card. Just share a couple of words. Enjoy this crazy cup this winter. I love cats. So do I. And Chelsea says, hope you have a great new year ahead. I think it says, some gifts you hold in your hand, others you hold in your heart. So grateful for you and all you do. And I think it was a birthday present. So she says, another new year ahead, as after my birthday. Stay strong and courageous in these disturbing times. God planned for us to be here and now. I 100% agree, Chelsea. Sorry, without my glasses, I gotta really zero in again. You are a breath of fresh air to me in this world of lies and deception, especially as a healthcare professional. It's so sad what's happening. Although it feels like a monster, God has foretold it all. And by the grace of God, may Jesus come soon. I agree. Stay black-pilled and authentic, my friend. We love it. Hearts and love, Chelsea. Thank you, Chelsea, so much. Beautiful card. And it's fun because the cup came in this great box with all the little cats. So not throwing that away, Chelsea. Gonna keep the cup on the coffee cup shelf. And the box with all the cats, the black cats, nearby. Well, we were all told yesterday that President Trump had a big important announcement to make today. So we had to wait till today at 11 a.m. It's going to be a big announcement out of the Oval Office. So I kind of kept tabs on it and looked around at it and noticed around noon there were some postings with some video clips, and Trump made the announcement that he has struck a deal, because it's all about the art of the deal, but it's the drug deal. It's always the drug deal. His entire presidency has been the art of the drug deal. He says he struck a deal, but as the president of the United States, who he every day forgets that he works for us, even though he doesn't act like it, and he certainly doesn't really work on our behalf. He's not very transparent about his deals. Okay, well, this isn't The Apprentice. This isn't Trump Tower. This isn't the Trump Organization. This isn't Trump Realty. This is the presidency of the United States. And unless it's a national security risk, which I don't think his shenanigans and his buddies and his backslapping with pharmaceutical CEOs is a national security issue, then he should be telling us what was that quid pro quo. Because companies aren't going to give up their their pricing, their revenues, without getting something in return, right? You made a deal. You clearly said that there was, there's an exchange by definition. You made a deal. So what was the deal? And why don't we get to know? And so that was his use of the Oval Office, a most austere place. It's our house that he's already bastardized and damaged and ripped apart. A third of it, ripped it off by ripping off the entire East Wing. And now using probably one of the most historic, not in the natural world, like not natural wonder, but the most historic location in the world. One of the top 2 or 3. The Oval Office to talk about Ozempic, a drug that he has struck a deal with several pharmaceutical companies, Ozempic and some other GL1 inhibitors. That's the classification of Ozempic, and all these drugs that you inject and then you lose your appetite. The Gila monster venom is used, and it is used to paralyze intermittently the peristalsis of your GI tract. Now, the peristalsis is that natural movement that keeps moving food along. Otherwise, food would just go down or get into a certain pocket and just stay there. But it's the constant motion, 24/7 peristalsis, that moves your food along. It's why you can stand on your head and eat a sandwich and it goes, well, it's technically going up, but it's really going down into your stomach. But gravity, it defies gravity because it's a muscular movement, repetitive. And Ozempic, an Ozempic class of drugs, the Gila monster venom derivative, paralyzes, for several hours and intermittently. What could go wrong? And in fact, I did a really important show on it maybe about a year or two ago, and I reposted it in my Twitter. I'll have to repost the link to it on my Telegram because I think you'd find it really interesting. People need to understand what these are. First of all, he used the Oval Office for this big announcement. I'm thinking, well, maybe he's going to reinstate the SNAP. Maybe he's got an alternative program to take the illegal aliens out and deport them, and then make sure that the supplemental nutrition program, the SNAP program, gets back in place for, Americans, American children, American disabled, American elderly who no longer work but can't make ends meet. But no, his announcement was that he had made a deal. He had another art of the deal with pharmaceutical companies that make these fat-reducing drugs. Now, these drugs were originally developed for diabetes, and really the reason they lowered the A1C, which is a marker for diabetes, and a tracking marker, excuse me, for keeping the diabetes under control, is because they lost weight because of it. There's no magic to the drug to take away your diabetes. Remember, the pharma industry is not about cure. It's about treatment for profit, right? And the reason you want to keep diabetes under control or eradicate it is because persistent circulating sugars in the bloodstream will eventually glycosylate or harden the inner lining of your arteries. In fact, your H1C is a measure of glycosylated hemoglobin. And the reason it's done every, your red blood cells, they die off. There's always a shift leaving and a shift coming in. And it takes 120 days for your body to make a red blood cell. So if it's in the process of making many of them, while apoptotically destroying the older ones to get rid of them, looking at your A1C, it's a glycosylated hemoglobin marker, which means that, you can tell the doctor you're doing everything right and cheating, but they can tell by the H1C that you're probably not, because there was more circulating sugar in the blood. We need sugar, the brain needs sugar, but when you have a lot of sugar circulating in your bloodstream, it's damaging to the arteries as well as other things. It wreaks havoc. Cancer is an obligate glucose feeder. It thrives in a high sugar environment. So there's another consideration. But let me see if I can. I should have teed this up before, but no worries. I had some really great, I've put out some great information. What's happening, first of all, the overarching idea is that Trump thinks it's a great idea and it's going to be so wonderful that he is shilling and selling. This guy is selling Ozempic right in front of your face, right in front of your eyes. And he surrounds himself behind him with his puppet frauds like Kennedy, Oz, Makery, okay? And you've got a couple of the CEOs from these companies that make these drugs. And he's proudly presenting it like the American people are going to go, oh my God, oh, winning, oh MAGA, Maha, oh, that's so great. It's either the greatest case of tone deafness, but I think that's giving him too much credit. You can't be that tone deaf. He's just brazen and arrogant and egotistical and highly narcissistic because he thinks you're going to be so pleased with him for making this deal, this art of making the deal with Ozempic, the Ozempic people, right? So what's happening since this Ozempic drug and its sister drugs, they got pushed out a few years ago, big time, for the rich, the financially, competent people who wanted to lose weight in a way that didn't, they didn't have to exercise, they didn't have to reduce calories, they just wanted their appetite taken away. Well, it does take your appetite away, but it does some other things too. It slows down your peristalsis. And so one of the major side effects is what's called gastroparesis. Paresis is a sort of stoppage. It's like it stops. So you're stopping peristalsis, right? And so people end up with, think about the organs that are supplemental to your GI tract, from your mouth out to your anus. Sorry for the visual. It goes through your esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine. But in between, there is your pancreas, there's your appendix, there's your gallbladder, there's the production of bile, the usage of it, the retrieving of it, the storing back of it. A lot of people were suffering higher rates of biliary disease, in other words, gallbladder disease, stones, cramping, pain, paresis. So the bile gets backed up, and that makes people sick, and they get jaundice because it backs up into the liver can't clear it fast enough. They had gastroparesis. So somewhere along, the GI tract, the alimentary canal, another name for it, you get sluggish, slow, sometimes start up again, very little, very slow movement through the GI tract. You're going to end up having blockages. You're going to end up having tortuous situations where the small intestine, maybe even parts of the large intestine, are trying to move things along, and they end up twisting. Now those are surgical emergencies. If you get a twisted intestine, that's an emergency situation, and you can't go very long without. You need emergency surgery to get in there, and I think the technique is to cut out from either side of that. They don't untwist it. It's not Doesn't work that way. You've got necrotic tissue. You've got tissue at the twist that began to die, that began to become necrotic. It's deprived of oxygen for a few minutes or a few hours, and so it becomes black and gangrenous. So they cut, I'm going to simplify it, they cut from either side of that, and they may be able to anastomose it. Most of the time they don't. And what they do is they kind of temporary clamp it, and the other end comes out through a colostomy bag. And then if the person can heal and the distance wasn't too far, then they can anastomose it later on. These are problems you don't want. These are unforced errors. You don't want this. Why? Because you can't drop your weight? I don't mean to disparage I'd love to go on these drugs if it was magical and super safe. And are you kidding me? And drop 10, 20 pounds? Dr. Jane would look even younger. But, well, when you lose weight, you look younger. You look like a younger version of yourself. Let's face it. One time about 7 or 8 years ago, I ended up, I was way too high, and actually not too far from where I am now, but back then. And I ended up going on a very strict, like kind of a Whole30 keto, healthy, but with fruits and vegetables, and walked every day. And in the course of 4 months, I dropped 35 pounds. And believe me, when you saw the side-by-side pictures, I looked like the daughter of myself 4 months earlier. So people look younger, when they get thinner. Everything gets smaller, so they're younger. And, okay. So, it's not easy, but why risk your health? And these are not well-studied drugs. You have to understand there's a momentum. There is this kind of spirit of corps d'esprit, this kind of a momentum of doing things the wrong way in the FDA. They got away with it in the vaccine categories. Why shouldn't it spill out into other categories? Oh, this is it's an important drug. Maybe it's on maybe it came out, I don't know the whole history of it. And honestly, I didn't want to do the research and get back into it again because it's not important. It's important for you to know that it's got a lot of risk. You can end up with some serious issues in your gastrointestinal system. People are getting pancreatic cancer, which is a very difficult cancer to survive. Most people don't. And a lot of times people don't know they have it until they're in the 3rd or 4th stage, and they're so far beyond in the process. And not to mention the fact that people have reported many, many times vomiting, nausea, bowel obstructions with tremendous amount of pain, and the pain that comes with constipation. Remember, it's slowing your natural peristaltic movement. Why would you want to do that? So it does have this mechanism by which maybe it messes with the hormones in the brain of satiety, right? Where the brain tells you, you're full, Jane, you've had enough. There's like a balance. You have melatonin and then you have excitatory neurotransmitters. Well, you've got like leptin and ghrelin. You can look those up. I think I talked about that in a show. Ghrelin is GHRELIN, and leptin, LEPTIN. Those are hormones that, they go up and down and they regulate your hunger. It's God's way of saying, look, you got to get a certain number of calories in. God, maybe you gave me a little bit of an imbalance because Dr. Jane loves to eat and I love, all my favorite foods. But joking aside, it disrupts that balance, and then people say, I'm not hungry. I had a girlfriend she's an MD PhD at Yale. We did a lot of research together in the pharma days, and it was interesting because she came to stay with me, and she was on it weekly, right? So you take the shot on Sunday. She flew down Sunday afternoon. I didn't know what to expect. She looked thinner. She looked, good at that point. She was with me for probably about 6 days. Well, the first couple of days, I was going to cook for her. I love to cook when family and friends come over. I was going to put afternoons together. And she just didn't want to eat. And it was so strange because we used to, go out to dinner together. in the old days and stuff like that, I was like, oh, how disappointing. But as the week went on, like it got to be Thursday, and she was going home, I think Saturday or Sunday, but she said, do you want to go out like to an Italian restaurant? I'm feeling kind of hungry. And it was really sad. No hunger at breakfast, no hunger at lunch. And then the fourth day, it must have been, because you have to inject it the following Sunday. Or maybe it was monthly. Whatever it was, it waned. And I said, yeah. So we went out to a restaurant. Just not good. Nishkit, not good. It interferes with your liver because your liver is very much involved in, first of all, it's very much involved in metabolizing venom and poison. But it's also very involved in regulating those GI-related hormones. Okay. These are GLP-1 receptor agonists, which means it enhances that, not antagonists. And they are putting a toll on your liver. Could end up with hepatitis, pancreatitis, even if you don't get pancreatic cancer. And these are not rare things. These are actually becoming more and more well known, but they're putting it down. So let me ask you a question. What is an American president? What is he doing in the middle of his day promoting a pharmaceutical drug for an elective condition? He's not promoting digoxin for cardiac regulation. He's not promoting, and he shouldn't be anyway, but I'm just saying, he's not promoting life-saving drugs. Now, don't come at me, in the comments with, you pick a rare exception. Well, Jane, my cousin was 600 pounds, like those people on the reality show, and they would have died without. That's not what I'm talking about. Not what I'm talking about. Take a look among the celebrities. Take a look among a lot of political types. Mike Pompeo. They deny that they've used it. Alex Jones, I asked about. He denied that he used it. But I have a relative who used to be a pro. I won't say what, because it'll give it away, because I have relatives that have been pros in several areas. But he went on, I know he went on it, because what happens is they got really skinny, and because they lost the weight fast, they lost muscle mass, and their arms are poles, their legs are poles. This is somebody who, like soccer and tennis, there's a lot of muscular, the thighs and the legs are very developed, but you take this, you get shrunk down, and you don't, your pole. And the face, the Ozempic face is a very, very vertical loss of facial fat. So what is an American president doing in the middle of the day, gathering Americans, so to speak, in the proverbial sense, and making an official announcement? I thought it was going to be for the benefit of the American people. What could it be? We all thought, what could it be? Could we have a breakthrough? Some people are still hopeful. I'm not that hopeful, but what could it be? Could it be the snap? He's got it sorted out. Get rid of the illegals, give it to the kids, the American kids. Could it be, a reduction in income tax? Could it be something good that the American people would run and listen to it and say, oh, great, okay, I'm happy with that. No, he's pushing a pharma drug and telling you that he made a deal with those companies. What deal did you make? What are they getting? Are they getting a fast track on some other drug that's brand new and branded and that's, as opposed to Ozempic, which is probably close to going off label into a generic so that anybody can make it? What deal did you make? And what are you doing? What are you doing day after day after day? That Oval Office has been nothing but a brothel for pharma execs. a brothel for pharma execs. For big pharma. The big pharma brothel. The big pharma brothel. That's what I'm gonna call it. The big pharma brothel. It's ridiculous. And I think people are getting sick and tired of it. I think they're getting sick and tired of Trump. Very wayward in this second term. In retrospect, you can see some of it in the first term, but there was such a feel-good, in the atmosphere, and I believe he had accomplished some things that were very exciting and that were in line with what the people wanted and why they voted for him. Even though, the left-wing lunatics were, complaining and screaming and crying, whatever. But this time, no, people are noticing it. Did you know the biggest threat to your retirement is not something that's talked about very often? Our increased longevity in America means default retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, and TSPs may not suffice. If you've got over $100,000 in your retirement account, get instant access to a free 2-minute report from Augusta Precious Metals that reveals the one step you can take to secure your financial future. Visit goldwithjane.com. That's goldwithjane.com, or text Jane to 35052 today. So along the lines of the Ozempic announcement, so crazy. Apparently it's the 1-year anniversary, the election night, of Trump winning the 24 election for president. And so there are all these reasons to celebrate. There are all these notices from the White House. And, Scavino, who, was a social media, queen for Trump in the first term. And now this one, he's got a more complex role, but he's got, there was a little celebration around a big conference table, Susie Wiles and the whole, White House staff, and all the thumbs up, and so tired of the thumbs up, so tired. And so they're celebrating, and they're having glasses of wine and, snacks and all that, because they're celebrating 1 year of thumbs up, because they want you to disregard your lying eyes. The economy is so great. Oh, everything's cheap. Gas is almost free. At the same time, they're celebrating, and they're having Sodom and Gomorrah parties at Mar-a-Lago, just scrambling. Everybody's scrambling. With these White House announcements on Twitter, rapid response. Each of the cabinets, they're all scrambling to try to tell you how good it is. To try to, convince you that you're just, I know you think those eggs at $8 a dozen, are bad, but it's almost like the neighborhood knows when I'm doing coffee chat, because they come out with their weed whackers, and, the dog is extra loud and all that. But anyway, just want to let you know. It's life. It's life. It's life. So where was I going with that? Basically, they're just such an effort that they're making to convince you that things are great. Things are great. And then, of course, probably one of the most disingenuous things I've seen in a long time is people like Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, some of the other representatives saying, trying to look so noble. I'm not taking a salary. I'm forfeiting my salary. Yeah, it's pretty darn easy to forfeit your salary of $175,000 a year when you're making $2 or $3 million every month in insider trading, which you have made legal for yourselves. You've created a cocoon of legality, and you can trade inside. You can talk to companies that you're already taking lobby money from. You have to understand what this means. So if I'm a representative, I'm seeing All these pharma company lobbyists come into my office. They all have appointments. They line up. That's what my week is filled with. And they're telling me, you've got to help us out with this, Representative Ruby. You've got to do this, this, and this. And I'm saying, well, it's going to be hard to get it through. And they say, look, we can make 4 consecutive $100,000 donations to your campaign if you do it. I'm like, oh, that would be really good. Okay, let's facilitate that. You can count on me. That's why they looked the other way. That's why they looked the other way and exempted themselves from the COVID shots and let our military struggle inside fighting their superiors. I don't want to do that. It's poison. And by the way, I've seen recently some comments to the effect that, well, when they sign up for the military, they sign up for all of that. They can't say no. That's not what we're talking about. And maybe that was part of it. Part of it with the anthrax, they were kind of put on notice that, hey, they're poisoning you if you sign on the dotted line. And some people want to be warriors and they say, well, you know what? I'm a soldier. Go ahead, stick me. And I've had those conversations with friends that are in the military. But the truth is, this was a self-harm order of a known bioweapon foisted upon the military. And there's no way they had an obligation to take that just because the oath of office was being violated by their superiors who were forcing it on them. So anyway, getting back to everybody in this administration is just, everything's so great. It's so great. When you're not seeing that. You're not feeling it. You're not living that. And that's going to gin up anger. And I hope it does. It should. Not violence, but it should gin up anger. Enough to, kind of get up off the proverbial couch and start to demand more. Or at least, it's so far gone on the federal level, although they still have, their claw down through us in many ways. But you've got to start setting up those boundaries and barriers at the local level, because it will trickle down through that. But if you've got a better barrier, because you've planned with your allies in your community, then it's only going to go so far. And think of the mask mandates, because those directives came down from the feds, then down through the state governments, through their health departments. Everybody was an authority. And then they came down through the counties and the city and the towns. So they implemented, because they were getting their goodies, their money trickling in. So you want to buttress from the local. You can work on the stuff between local and the state later, but at least get the buttress in place. That's when people say, what should I, Dr. Jane, you black pill, but you don't have any solution. I have a ton of solutions. I bring in experts with a ton of solutions. But that's one of them. And that's a project unto itself. But you have to understand what the mission is. So I'm reinforcing the mission of alliances and creating the community or the neighborhood or the town, wherever you can get it. Buttress and boundary. So it's easy for Ron Johnson to say, well, I'm a do-gooder. Meanwhile, he's had 1 million hearings with Malone, same suspects, and they don't do jack shit. They have these hearings. Yeah, the COVID injured. Oh yeah, and the mRNA, and the furin cleavage site, and the this, and the SE40, and that. And people are still dying, still getting sick, and dropping dead, and stroking out. So it's easy to say I'm going to give up my salary when I know I'm making another $8 million this year on the lobby money and the pharmaceutical thing and the APAC thing and all that other stuff. Yeah, you could be a hero when you're getting money, a lot more money from another door. So remember that, and remember that all of these scumbags own stock. Now, you might say, well, okay, they're Americans, they're entitled to have their 401k, they're entitled to have their mutual fund, and I don't disagree. But where I disagree and where I call it out is you have a special duty. The Baker bakes bread. The candle maker makes candles. The politician only has their name and their integrity, which really they have none. But the way it should be is they have their trust from the American people. And I don't begrudge them holding stock, but there should be a separation from conflict of interest. How can you hold hearings, MTG, in support of the COVID jab injured over and over and over again, while you hold the stock in companies like Gilead Sciences that makes remdesivir, that's killing Americans every day in our hospitals, still with the hospital protocol of remdesivir and ventilator, because the PrEP Act was extended to 2029. Didn't know that? She's sitting there making money on Gilead and CRISPR-Cas9 technologies that makes the CRISPR-Cas9 that enables that to cut into the cell. And Pfizer and a whole bunch of other. They should not hold stock in companies that make a product for which they're holding hearings of injury. Now, maybe they shouldn't be the ones to hold the hearings of inquiry for COVID jab injuries if they hold COVID jab technology in their portfolio and they're making money. That just doesn't go. But we don't have any integrity. We don't have any righteousness around conflict of interest anymore, do we? So the disingenuousness of these elected officials is fraudulent. Rand Paul's been known to hold all kinds of, like Pfizer, Moderna, all kinds of pharmaceutical stock, and huge conflicts of interest in other industries too. Oh, well, my wife held it. No. If you're married, that's community property. That doesn't fly with me. Oh, my wife held it. Oh, okay. To that end, in terms of disingenuousness, so Kennedy, who was, through his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, was catapulted up to the top of the vaccine, anti-vaxxing, the dangers of vaccine, sort of that realm with the book, is now doing everything he can to avoid mRNA. And a few people said to me, in social media, well, Dr. Jane, he's mentioned it. Oh, and that's good for you? Okay. He mentioned it? He mentioned it. See, that's the problem I have with a lot of the public. If they throw you a crumb and say, yeah, we're looking into that, you go back and say, you become an advocate for them, and you say, don't worry about it. He mentioned it. Oh, Lord. Bobby mentioned it. He gets a prize for that? He gets points for that? So he came out yesterday, some of these stupid things on Twitter. It's like, he's standing there like this, right? With his crunched up face and his messed up voice, and just looks like he's 80. Because 14 years of injecting heroin into your arm every day does take a toll. Comes out and says, we got to go after Fauci. We got to go after Fauci. Fauci's got to be held accountable. How about we look in the mirror, Bobby? Okay, yeah, and not saying he's wrong. Sure, Fauci should be indicted, but Ron Johnson didn't do it. Rand Paul didn't do it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, anybody else on these committees didn't do it. And they're not going to. And Trump, those of you who say, oh, Dr. Jane, you go, F you, I hate you, you hate Trump, you're a dang. Trump let Biden pardon him. Although I don't know why Trump didn't do it, because he knows he can get away with everything. But Trump actually did something much worse than pardon Fauci. It was a much bigger slap in the face to the American people, to those COVID injured. Many of you out there I know, I talk to, I've met at conferences, we DM, we talk. He is mocking you. Kennedy is mocking you so hard. So hard. Because he's in charge now. See, you can say all you want about the people that were in before, and we should be arresting them. To, the credit, I was talking to Ivan Raikling the other day. Yeah, I'm with you. Arrest Mayorkas, Austin, Lloyd Austin, Alex Azar. They're not going to touch them. They're not going to touch them. But the point is, Kennedy's saying, yeah, we got to hold Fauci accountable. But you're in charge now, Bobby. The mass genocide is happening under your HHS. Not Mayorkas's. Not Alex Azar. Not Scott Gottlieb. Not Anthony Fauci. It's under your watch. Prove me wrong. You can't argue with me on that one. It's under your watch. It's your Health and Human Services Department, which you remember is the umbrella. Then there's CDC, FDA, NIH, and all. There's hundreds of institutes in there, and a lot of other health related. Why do you think HHS is so big with a $2 trillion budget? Almost as much as the DOD budget. Why do you think? Because it's a money maker for the government. It's a perfect mechanism for transfer of wealth. And as Catherine Watts said, it's a Potemkin village. Public health is a weapon of mass destruction. Because it is used in so many ways to transfer wealth. And the collateral damage from that is the death, early death, and the damage, permanent damage to Americans. So, forgive me if I get a little hot under the collar when I see Kennedy, who's the head of HHS now and has been for 9-ish months, say, yeah, we gotta, hold Fauci accountable. It's like when congressional members bitch and moan, we've got a problem over here. We've got to do this. We have too many aliens. We've got this. You're in the position to change it, not us. You're in the position to change it. Why are you bitching to us? It's one thing to let us know that you recognize the problem, but put that together with a solution. You're in a position with the power and the financial resources of the federal government to make a difference, to make a correction. But instead, they grandstand because they want credit for mentioning it. Because she mentioning it puts it in people's minds. And people go, oh yeah, he's working on it. Oh yeah, he's all over chemtrails. Or he's all over mandates. This thing about, I'm against mandates, or I'm gonna, no, all due respect to Latipo, because I do like him. He's our Surgeon General in Florida. But, I'm gonna stop all mandates. Hey, why don't you go further upstream and stop the poison? Do you know how, if you put the right term in for the COVID shots, which is poison or bioweapon, either one, and if you put that term in the sentence, and then say, and when they come out and say, I'm going to stop the mandates for the poison, well, doesn't it make sense that you should actually outlaw and eradicate the poison? I mean, I get the mandate thing, but that's a Band-Aid because you still have the poison being manufactured. You're not necessarily tracking that it's going into other things, like the seasonal flu shot, like the RSV, which is a phony, made-up term for a respiratory syndrome, very similar to the common cold, which I know some babies go to the hospital. There's got to be other factors there, whether it's congenital, immunocompromise, maybe it escalates. I mean, I've seen a basic pneumonia take down a 35-year-old who's like an athlete. in a hospital. I took care of someone once. But these are super rare, and there have to be other confounding factors. RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, is a phony term for the common cold, just another version of the common cold, which, as we've learned, is much more, it's looking much more like it was the hidden scourge of intracellular parasites and parasite eggs and radiation poisoning and frequency poisoning like EMF and 5G and higher Gs. But yeah, we gotta go get Fauci. You're in charge, Kennedy. You're not waiting to get into position. You're not navigating through your confirmation hearing anymore. You're in the position. And we've gotten your disingenuous, fraudulent, lying bullshit for 9 months now. Red dye and Fruit Loops? If you weren't insulted by this guy, then you're dumb. Oh yeah, but he's cleaning up the food. It's a good start. You don't start with the least dangerous things first. You start with the most imminent dangerous things first. So you halt the mRNA, then you can do all the studies you want. I don't care if you take the next 500 years to do your studies, but you halt it. You don't release it. You don't allow it to be injected into anybody. You put a moratorium and a freeze on it. Because most people who have a brain and who've looked up a few things know that the technology was developed for gain of function, meaning to soup it up into something that would be harmful to humans, to then use it as a weapon. Oh, we're okay with it when we're going to use it as a weapon against a foreign country like a China or a Russia. But many of you also seem to be okay with it when it's pretending to be something good, but injected into Americans. And yet, as you watch people fall over or tell you that they've been sick ever since they took those shots, have permanent heart problems at the age of 30 or 40, all those things, you still don't demand that the mRNA be halted, outlawed, stop. It's caused more than enough death and destruction. But Kennedy is in the position that you wanted him in. And he hasn't done it. Went to the Steak and Shake to do the dog and pony show with the tallow. I love tallow, but I make sure I source it properly and that I get it from cows that are not injected with anything toxic, that eat healthy organic grains and that roam and that are from small feedlots. And he didn't even address that. He doesn't even know what he's doing. This is a 14-year junkie who happened to get a law degree, who's the black sheep of the family, and I'm assuming with a lot of help, wrote a very detailed book about the foibles and the life and times of Anthony Fauci running the NIH. The NIH is but one sub-unit of Health and Human Services. Do you understand that? You gotta visualize this. Fauci ran NIH. HHS is over NIH, FDA, CDC, all the health agencies. Kennedy owns Health and Human Services. But he hasn't done anything. He's done Steak and Shake fries, Fruit Loops. Oh, he took the mercury out of maybe the remaining few vaccines in the childhood schedule. You might say, well, Dr. Jane, isn't anything enough? No, it's not. Because he left about 1,000 other things in those vials that they're injecting babies with every day in utero before they're even out of the womb. Not to mention the COVID shot. There's one COVID shot they got on the childhood schedule in the utero. So some of you, when you write to me and say, well, didn't he remove it from the childhood? No. In fact, they moved one in utero. Now, I don't know what that means, in utero. In utero, to me, as a route, as a medication route, means a long needle under fluoroscopy, and you inject the placenta or the baby inside the the uterine sac. God forbid. Or does in utero mean injecting a pregnant woman? Both are horrific. But it's in there. Hasn't touched it. In fact, told you in the confirmation hearings he wasn't going to touch it. He was going to support it. I support the childhood schedule. I don't think I imagined it. Bobby Kennedy Jr. owns HHS. And the fact that none of you are holding him accountable, you're just as reprehensible as he is for not holding Fauci accountable, for not going for a criminal referral, and then let the DOJ turn him down, and then we're off to the races. But they don't stir the pot at all. So he's there. What more do you want? Do you want to spoon feed him? Do you want to hand it to him? He controls a $2 trillion master agency over many other health agencies. If not now, then when?